What's going on YouTube? Justin here. Today's video we're actually going to talk about how we transformed our laundry space. It's in the basement from that to this for about just under $500. We'll talk you through how we did it, what we used, and give you a rough cost breakdown for transforming this little laundry space into something a lot more aesthetically pleasing and a lot more functional. We decided the best time to buy a house was during a global pandemic. Our property needs a lot of work, and honestly, we're figuring it out as we go. Mostly, we're going the DIY route. However, occasionally, we call on the pros.
Here it comes.
Follow along to join our adventure as we aim to teach fellow DIYers. When we purchased this house, the agreement had appliances as is. A newer stove, relatively new refrigerator. Since the washer and dryer were the only ones left, figured one of them was busted. If you can tell the difference between what we started with and what we have now, you'll notice the dryer and the washer are mirror imaged. That's because we flipped it onto the other side of the wall. By doing so, three things you're going to need: electrical, plumbing, and venting. And if you end up having a gas dryer, unfortunately, this video is not for you, but stick with us. We'll show you how to do everything else. Luckily for us, the electrical was pretty easy to do. We recommend calling somebody if you're not familiar with it. Washer, pretty basic, and we got a new cover there, cheap, couple bucks at Home Depot, just to give it a nice fresh, clean look. Dryers are trickier. We highly recommend double check your code, call in the pros. In the United States, dryers now are using a 4-prong approach. Old ones used to use a 3-prong, which is what we had before, but fortunately, we were able to call in somebody and they swapped it over. This is a feature that is selectable when you buy new appliances from any of the big box stores or things like that. So just double check your outlet. A couple of options here. You have the flexible kind of extension venting. Comes in, I think, 4-foot lengths, condenses down nicely, and it has these adjustable elbows, straight sections on the end. Be careful when you're using these, wear gloves. And then the other option that we ended up going with, because we have a vertical and then we have quite a distance to get to our exterior vent, we decided to go with the solid 4-inch ducting. And you'll see that it comes with this. You kind of gotta snap it together to assemble it. One detail that you want to make sure that you're incorporating is that this joint, if you're running a slightly horizontal angle, is that this joint is on top so that any lint would drop down to the bottom, and obviously the bottom of it is a nice smooth surface. Otherwise you could get lint buildup, and over time and create a fire hazard. Another thing you will need is they sell dryer tape, which is just a thermal tape. It's aluminum coated. And then for our instance, we ended up needing a couple of elbows to come out of the dryer and run the length. So what you're gonna do is you're actually going to put your strap over your joint, and then you will apply all your tape. And another thing you want to do as well is run tape along the seam of this so that you're not losing any heat. Otherwise, you could end up with moisture issues, and you don't want moisture in your basement. It's kind of hard to tell because we hit it, but it's back there. You can probably see that. Hopefully you can see that line of tape running up the wall there. One last note is you'll notice the strapping here is steel, which is also the same as the ducting. And this is because if you put copper with steel, over time it'll erode. Then it's on to the plumbing. Quick rundown of what you're gonna need. In order to run new lines, use the SharkBite T to tie it into the existing copper lines. The way a SharkBite works is there's an O-ring in there. You don't want to rip that O-ring, otherwise you'll end up with a drip over a certain amount of time. In order to run new lines to your washer box, we used PEX. These wall boxes are about 50 bucks, but they're worth it. Then you can just have this quarter turn shut off here. If you need to, you can just shut it off. These are called hammer arresters. What they do is, if you turn the water on really quickly, it'll prevent the pipes from kind of rattling. Nice thing about PEX is it's flexible, pretty easily work with it, feed it to where you need to be. When you're working with PEX, you want to buy one of these cutters. It allows you to get a nice straight edge, and you just pop it in there, cut nice and square, and then just double check to make sure you don't have any sharp edges in here. In order to secure your PEX to a fitting, you might be able to tell that there's a couple of rings in the middle of this fitting. So what the idea is when the PEX goes over it, you're going to put a crimp over it, and you're going to leave that crimp about 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch away from this bottom edge. Pop on like that. You're going to slide your crimp over it. You're going to have about 1/4 of an inch right around there. You want that crimp to be over those two ridges. That'll give you a nice tight connection. You're going to use your crimp tool. This takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of force. Then you'll see, once you crimp it, about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, it's a nice secure fasten. And then you'll take those fasteners, nail them into the stud. Depending upon where you feed it, you're going to end up feeding it through the stud. So you want to take these metal plates and secure them to the stud. That way there, when you go to affix any pictures or anything like that, you're not going to run a screw through that and end up with a leak. Going into the drain side of things, what you're going to need is you're going to need this purple primer and then this PVC glue. This is for the PVC. All of these purple joints, the purple is the primer, and then you're going to let that sit on the pipe for a couple of minutes, and then when you're ready to glue your connection together, that's when you put the paint on, you push it together, you hold it there under some pretty good force for a minute, and then it's ready to go. Our shark bite wall connection comes down. It's a 2-inch line. 2 inches technically code now, so double check all your code. And then we came down into a P-trap. And what this does is you want to make sure that that P-trap is below that drain pipe, because it'll trap sewer gas. And you want a downward angle of about 1/4 of an inch per foot. Another note is that if you have a Y connection like this, you cannot just go right into a branch. You need to go from a Y to a 45 to make that a less severe angle into your drain. When you're going from a PVC, which is the white, to an ABS, which is the black, you're going to want to use a rubber fitting that has clamps on it. Do not try to glue it. They are two different materials. Let's get to the utility sink. You come down from the sink, you come into this threaded adapter, you come around to a P-trap, same concept as the washing machine drain, and then it runs down into the drain. This and this part are both compression fittings. There's a little rubber gasket in there, and then they sell 6-inch, 8-inch, 12-inch length adapters to go from your sink to your P-trap, and then it's same as cutting the PEX. Home Depot and Lowe's, they sell this flexible accordion P-trap thing. Do not use that. It is not to code in all 50 states. They sell these little compression adapters, and that just slides in a nice straight section like that. You're able to leave it long. And before we get into the cost breakdown, here's a 20-second montage of our start to finish time lapse. Things for the walls, moisture board, the studs, that came to about $175. The supply lines, the PEX, the hose lines came to about $160. The drains, PVC elbows, things like that came to about $40 total. As for the utility sink, that came to $200. There are options for about $100. We splurged, we like stainless steel. Our grand total came to $575. Again, if you go with a less expensive sink, that could bring you down to sub $500. So if you have any questions, please let us know. And if you like this video or found it useful, please give us a subscribe, a like, even hit that bell icon to get notified when we post videos. We're trying to post videos every week. There's plenty of work on our house. We'll be learning how to do lots of things around the house as we remodel and renovate. So thanks for watching. Follow along. It would help to put the caps on before you start heating it up. What's up, YouTube? Justin here.